Map. This is Ron Costa broadcasting live from the Mapable USA studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. And folks, today we're going to talk a little bit about Regulation A. We're going to talk about some ways to get this thing going with investors and all kinds of different angles that you probably never even heard about before, maybe not even considered. But before we get started with that, let's introduce Vicky Hutchmala from the World Token Market. Vicky, how's it going over there with you?
Fabulous, Ron. Always great. Although we're entering into that time of year where you kind of leave a puddle wherever you go, since it's 115 degrees in Vegas now. Today it's a little bit humid, but it doesn't matter because we have a great guest today, and we're going to talk investing, we're going to talk blockchain, we're going to talk how to make money. So let's get started.
All right. Well, let's introduce David Blankman. Folks, David is an expert in venture capital and Wall Street raising capital, and really one of the real people in the industry that really know what he's talking about. So David, how are you doing over there today?
I'm doing great. I'm in Houston, where the mosquitoes used to carry you off because of the ice apocalypse in February. We don't have mosquitoes, but it's hot and humid here. So I'm joining you in suffering.
Fortunately,
well,
it
right
only
now there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go. You just stay in air conditioning and do podcasts with great folks like you.
Yes, thank you very much. I like that. But before the podcast, we were talking about something that was really impressive. You said no amount of heat will keep you from the golf course, and that's the way we should live life.
You just drink about a pint of water. You're okay.
Hey, listen, David, before we get into the meat of the conversation here, Reg A-wise, can we get a little background on you and what you've been doing and how you got to be where you are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a professional from Wall Street, 30 years of regulated investment advisory and investment banking experience. That in the part of my career where it's kind of a give-back phase, I'm working very hard to help emerging growth companies develop plans and strategies to raise capital online. The new FinDeck approach is investors are investing in deals on their iPhones today. And these new type of offerings under the Jobs Act of 2012 legislation allows investors of all classes, non-accredited and accredited, to invest online in private early-stage deals, emerging growth companies. And I find it very exciting that, since we're all inside because it's so darn hot, that we can pull out our iPhone and look at great businesses and push a button, invest now, and boom, we're now investors in private early-stage businesses. So as a capital markets professional, I work public and private deals and help issuers and investors to be successful in that pursuit.
What a world we live in.
I know.
Well, exactly. But like you said, it's great to be able to pull out your iPhone or smart device and be able to invest right there. But somehow these issuers and crowdfunding people have to have their deal in front of you so you can click that invest button, right? So is that? I think that's the big time challenge for a lot of these guys.
It is, and that's where social media engagement is so important as a strategy. And one of the campaign tools that I help my issuers with is understanding exactly the importance of, I tell them, when they're planning to raise capital, whether it's a startup or even an emerging growth companies or not startups, they need to be starting right away their social media engagement for their business, especially if they're a B2C business, which means business to consumer. And if they have any access to e-commerce where they're building an app to allow people to buy their product on the phone, whether it's a social media app or e-commerce product-driven app, they literally need to be reaching out in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and have a list of contacts, and friends will tell friends. And that is what makes this all work in equity crowdfunding, exactly that. And so I counsel a lot of founders and also help investors to completely understand how this works, so that they can find the deals. You were so correct, Ron. It's all about finding it. And while we're all huddled inside because it's hot, they find it and they can invest. And it's literally an amazing thing when it works in that way.
So is there a certain industry that works better with what you're focusing on, David?
Yes, any business to consumer that has people that sign up on an app as users, in other words, they're customers, or they sign up and pay a fee to be on their app, can benefit from equity crowdfunding because a percentage of their users or their customers will like the product so much. They say, can I become an owner of your business? And the answer can be yes, because you could be running a regulation crowdfunding or a Reg A Plus campaign online, and your customers become also investors. So you have a double revenue stream. One is revenue from sales of your product, and the second is capital coming into your business, capital funding from your offering. So, and your marketing spend dollars that it takes to reach people through Facebook advertising or Instagram and reaching out and building those large lists of people to communicate with are well spent, because the marketing dollars get two revenue streams coming into your business. It's really a key thing, and it's what, in the early stage of looking at these funding opportunities online, I help issuers to really understand whether they qualify, whether it really would work for their business that they're creating.
And it's, it gives people a happy feeling, or I don't know how to describe it, but it's nice to be able to invest in a company that you do business with. Traditionally you invest in maybe the stock market, and so you're investing in companies that you don't even know who you're investing in. But by the way you're doing it, you have your ordinary guy, your Joe Blow on the street, and he can invest in the businesses that he goes to and in the products that he purchases. And that's the nice thing about this new way of investing and capital raising for businesses.
Exactly. And it can be somebody in their community. They're helping provide jobs in their community.
Exactly.
This is another side benefit. That's why it's called the job. The acronym is Jumpstart Our Business Startups. But really, it also means jobs, It means creating employment for people. Their neighbors, can become employed by a business that's in their community, or the business can be not in the community, but the customer base can also be, close by and available to investors to communicate with. So it just ties, I say it this way, social media ties the earth together in a way that we've never had before, and we're seeing such an amazing strength and power in that for product-driven companies that are e-commerce oriented, that have products that all consumers want to either own or know about, and then those same people can invest in those companies and enjoy the ride. I talk about this, I tell the Uber story, okay? The Uber, had it been available online to one of the portals for $100, a family could have invested as little as $100. 9 years later, that startup business went through all kinds of scaling and growing and very high success. I mean, back then, if you'd asked me that, do you want to invest in this deal where all your neighbors are going to be taxi drivers? I would have said, what? My neighbors are taxi drivers? I don't know, dude. But you know what? It worked, right? But that $100 literally had to stay in. It wasn't liquid. It was a private placement security stock. So they just held it, and if they had gone all the way to where they could have had an exit when it went public on the New York Stock Exchange, you know what the $100 equity growth was and what it was worth? As of really now, it's an amazing number.
It goes to show that no matter what crazy idea you have, you just don't know what's going to make it take off.
It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's worth $100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an amazing thing. When you think about it. Yeah, Uber is a
early stage non-accredited investors to get into some of these offers.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Uber is a company, a transportation company that doesn't own any vehicles, just like Airbnb is a travel place that doesn't own any real estate. It's really crazy.
Exactly.
Crazy times.
Yeah. So We kind of shifted over to the investor opportunity. We were talking about issuers, so I don't want to lose our audience in that. But I just want to also bring in the investor opportunity here, because it is also community, and this is cool, and I like it, and I want to support local businesses. Great altruistic motivation to invest. But there's also the equity growth and meeting the goals of families for retirement, college education, and the reasons people invest anyway. And that's what I like about it. As a Wall Street professional, that's what I like about this whole thing, and helping these non-accredited early young investors become competent investors and grow portfolios and accomplish their goals for their families.
Yeah, no, it's huge. It's huge. You know, you talked earlier about how when you take your customers and they become your evangelists, it's probably the best sales tactic that a company can have, because, you know, it's like referrals, right? You know, when somebody refers somebody out, you're more likely to do business with them because they already know, like, and trust you. So that's a great strategy, you know, to use on this kind of stuff. Plus, you mentioned also something that kind of flies under the radar sometimes is your acquisition costs for these customers are, you know, it multiplies by 2 because they can become investors if they want. So I agree. I mean, it's a great thing, this Reg A, huh?
Yeah, and they need to, very early in the fundraising stage, like I mentioned, maybe it's a good segue into the investor relations group for a startup or an emerging growth company. Even when you're mom and dad or your lead investors, right? You need to start your investor relations group right then. What is investor relations group? It's the people in your business that take care of investors so well that they're so happy to go out and tell thousands of other investors to jump in and be investors. That's what investor relations group does. You don't think mom and dad are going to be evangelists for the child who owns that business? But so will everybody else. But you got to build that into your business, and it means follow-up emails. It means resource data on the business quarterly or annually on the performance and the growth factor, and what our new projects are, and getting all excited. And if you keep that in front of your original investors, guess what? Your investors grow. They continue to tell other people about it. And maybe you do, you know, even under Reg CF, which is the up to $5 million deal you can do online. And then the Reg A Plus is up to $75 million. You can do several of these offerings during your trajectory into growing your business. And each one, your army, I'll call it the army of small investors, is just one of the most vital assets of your business to carry you forward, because they also can be customers/investors that grow over time. And you say, well, do you want thousands of investors for the right business plan? Yes, absolutely, you do, because they're customers also.
So
how many
David,
thousands of customers does Amazon have? And it's not thousands. I'm sorry, it's quadrillion.
Yeah. So David, you're talking about an investor relations group. How do you find the people that can do this for you? You know, you got to align yourself with these industry professionals, but where are they?
Yeah. What I do with my clients, I have a Reg A Plus client currently, and I'm setting it up for them as a paid advisor. I help issuers to set it up. I may train an individual or even an intern in the early stages, a younger person that's really interested, has the kind of the customer outreach talents to, you know, touch. It's called touches in marketing. Touch the investors, and on a regular basis, follow up with them if they have questions. And so I actually bring in a investor relations module into my advisory with the client and help them set it up at an earlier, because it'll help them so much no matter what funding they use, even all the way through to becoming a public company, that they already understand the vital need for an investor relations person or group. You know, IBM and Home Depot have, in a skyscraper somewhere, I guess they're back in skyscrapers by now, I don't know, maybe a whole floor that's their investor relations group, that maybe 60 to 100 people that do that job, you know, for a large public company. But that started small, didn't it, when they were younger? And so that's a very important aspect of scaling and growing a business. as they move forward.
And it keeps that personal connection, too, so that investors feel like they're the only investor in the company because they're constantly not constantly, but they're being contacted regularly, so they feel a connection. And that's important to word of mouth and customer service as well.
Yeah. As a registered investment advisor, I had my own managed practice in the decade before this last decade. I built up a whole list of clients. Literally, investors trust you with the next most important thing in their life to their children and their puppy dogs, and that's their money. Right?
Yeah.
And so when they do that, they need to know one thing at a time, always, is I care about you. If you don't ever forget anything about this call, remember that if you treat your investors with a caring attitude, I care about you, I care about your concerns and your questions, we're going to follow up with you. I told people I never lost an investor client in all the years of doing it professionally because I cared about my clients. I didn't leave them into the dark. And you know, when the market crashes, we're going to have another stock market crash. I don't know when. I'm not that smart. But when we do, that's when you really care, because that's when they're all scared.
Yeah.
That's when they're all scared. And if you do that through that time, through the good times, guess what? You'd be doing it through the bad times when you really need it, because it just may keep your business afloat to do that.
There's so many opportunities that investors, as much as they'd like to, they really can invest in everything, and they go with the companies that have the best customer service, the best investor relations, because they feel connected. And no matter how smart you are, no matter how much due diligence you do or how much analytical data you look at, it still comes down to that emotional connection to where your money's going that keeps you there and keeps you investing continuously.
Especially with private companies. They don't have the overriding responsibility from being a publicly registered company like Home Depot to do it by law. They have to have all their data, K-1s, information on their website with the SEC updated or else. Private companies don't have that mandate. But if you do it as a private company, even when you're very small, you form a habit that's going to take you into the capability of becoming a publicly traded, exchange-traded business when you grow and scale to that level. It's going to help you do that, and it will help you so much in all your aspects of capital raising from the day you do your first seed offering until you go public. Out of the Uber story, when they first launched in 2011, they did a $2 million seed raise that some very prominent venture capitalists in the Silicon Valley area were in that deal. That's the one I used the example about if you had been able to do $100, right? That early, but I can tell you what, one of those VCs that invested in them helped them to do a investor relations group to have transparency of all their financials and information, growth dynamics, decisions made by the company as they move forward. Because, private deals, private placement companies pivot a lot, right? And you better darn sure let your investors what a pivot is and when you're going to do it and what it's going to do and how it's going to help them. Because pivots can be literally the end of a business if you don't do that right. You know what I'm talking about, pivots. Right. Pivots are such a vital part of the startup life because you just might. I'll give you an example of it. I'm using brands on the broadcast, using the names of the companies. I don't want to do that if it's not okay. But I use one, Airbnb. You know what their original business was? You may know this.
No.
Most people don't know this. Was blow up beds instead of rollaways that were metal for hotels. Airbnb was air, bed, and breakfast, right?
Wow, I didn't know that.
Look at the pivot.
Interesting.
Look at the pivot, dude. They didn't end up doing beds or hotels at all. They challenged the whole hotel paradigm when they found out people wanted to rent their homes to vacations. That's a pivot.
Yeah, that adaptability, that's another key. Being able to see what works and what doesn't, and then go where it works.
Exactly.
Don't be afraid.
And communicate to your investors, and so they're going to get a little scared when you tell them, by the way, we're not doing airbeds. We're going to go and transform the reservation industry for vacation property. And they go, what? Say that again.
Maybe I should go with Uber.
I mean, I like the airbed idea. What's wrong with that?
Right. Yeah, that might have been a fortune too. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But David, you mentioned earlier in the podcast about the importance of starting up a marketing campaign before you do all this crowdfunding. Is it the same thing with these investor relations? Like when should a company start thinking about, hey, you know what, I need one of these, I got to develop one of these programs here?
Yeah, digital marketing and social media advertising needs to be done literally from the day that the CEO and his or her team decides, we need to raise funding. Let's go find out how to do it. The first thing they need to do is start an investor relations group when their mom and dad gives them $10,000. Okay, that starts. And then they have to have a structure for building that out as they get more investors, because I tell you what, it's this attitude of investor relations that does what? Brings in more investors. Because the big part of the marketing program is having a digital marketer that knows how to do all this Facebook, pushing the right buttons on the computer to do Facebook advertising to the right demographic, to the right zip codes. You know what I'm talking about. It's very complicated stuff. And if they don't have someone on their team, I always tell startup founders to locate a outsourced digital marketing person or group that can help them do these things. And then also I talk to them about budgeting for this, because it's not inexpensive. And they have to understand that there is some cost going in to launching an online equity crowdfunding campaign. And I literally help them to understand what those costs are and plan ahead for them.
You're reading my mind for my next question, which is basically what I've heard in the industry is you got to really kind of just ballpark it at 10% of what you want to raise as far as marketing costs are concerned. Is there something similar to that, like a ballpark figure that people can use for investor relations?
But the added comment that makes it palatable, because that sounds like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. This is marketing spend that does two things for these kind of businesses that want to be online capital raising, okay? It also is marketing dollars to grow your business for users and revenue. And when you think of it as a double benefit, that 10% goes, oh my God, I get it, when you explain it that way to a founder and their team. So it's literally, you're going to do marketing anyway. Once you have a beta, let's say a social media app that pays, you refer a friend and you get a kickback, some sort of payment for doing that. And there's so many of those being, launched around the world right now. Literally, when you do that way, you can be confident that you're going to be able to attract the kind of investor that's also going to be a user, that marketing dollar spend is going to be very, very important, and you would budget it anyway going into doing the offering.
When you work with CEOs on this topic, do they give you input as far as what they think should be going on, or do you just provide the suggestions for these guys? Because I know a lot of these guys, they either want to be all involved or not involved at all, which basically means half of them are successful and half of them aren't. But how do you interact with these CEO guys?
It's exactly right. It's known in the startup, if you want to call it the startup industry, it's the CEO's responsibility to raise the funding. He doesn't like it. He or she doesn't like it. It's the hardest job on the planet, I want to tell you. But there are steps that he can learn, and if he listens to competent advisors like myself, that will make that job a lot more accomplished with the amount of budgeting and the amount of time that it takes to do it. What happens to the startup founder, the CEO, he says, well, I want to run the business. I want to sit with the dev team and create this wonderful online app that's going to help people to do this and do that, right? Well, he finds out that when he's fundraising for his seed round or even his Series A or Series B, even as they get more advanced, it's totally absorbing of his time and attention, right? So what he has to do is find some people. I always tell the CEO that the second person he hires is a CTO, Chief Technology Officer. And he runs the dev team. The CEO has to run the financial funding side of the business when they're young and starting out. And I always counsel founders to that effect.
And I think CEOs need to be salespeople for their business and their product or their service. You know, they're like run the business, but you've got to be the top salesperson so that you can motivate your team to go out and sell with the same kind of passion that you have for having created the company, and then pass that on to your technical team so they can go out and find the investors. There's a lot of passion that a CEO needs that goes into how much success they're going to end up with. That's
Absolutely.
what I believe.
You know, in the traditional venture capital world where, a founder and CEO would stand up and do his 3-minute pitch in front of a live audience of accredited investors. You know, that's a traditional way of doing this seed funding. He's the guy that's got to be masterful in doing a 3-minute pitch and getting enough in there to where 2 or 3 of those investors in the room walk up and hand him a card and say, I want to have a conversation with you about your business. He just
and you have to pass on that passion so it becomes contagious, so people, like you say, can't wait to participate. And when you make it as easy as you're making by investing online, credited or non-accredited, then without that passion, it's like, okay, well, I can go invest in this company instead of yours because I just didn't feel it when I heard you. I didn't feel it when your people talked to me. Because, again, it comes back to that emotional connection that you feel that you've done something that makes you feel good and want to do it more because you want to feel better.
Yeah. And, literally, I don't know how many people out there watch Shark Tank, but it's the traditional way of doing it. Rich guys are sitting there hearing the pitch in the room, right? Literally, those investors, including the Shark Tank guys, including Mark Cuban and all of them, will tell you if you ask them, why did you invest in business? He said, I like the guy or I like the girl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Literally.
Right.
And if the business is like, well, maybe, you know what? Mark Cuban already knows something. They're going to pivot. He probably knows the pivot that they're going to do because those big investors are so experienced. They said, I like the guy or I like the girl, and they're going to be successful because of their presentation skills.
Yeah, sometimes it comes down to a little simplicity.
Yes.
But that also leads into an issue, David, about a lot of these guys who are putting content on social media from marketing or even from let's say investor relations too. This content has to be engaging, right? It's got to be impressive. Don't you see a lot of stuff out there that really is like, you're better off not even posting it because it's not making me do something.
If it's boring and it's not exciting to the investor, I tell them the video is key. Video is the thing they see first on the offering deal card when they go to a website to make a purchase of an investment. It's the video. They need to be under a minute long. Propositions that are clearly stated, and just like a good commercial on TV, it needs a close, which is a action close of literally telling the investor to learn more by going further down, seeing the pitch deck, seeing the offering summary, and all the information about the offering. Because if you do that video right, literally, I say this a lot on phone calls, that Visa card will pop out of the wallet. I mean, for $100, $250 per investment, the minimum investment, how much due diligence do you need to do for the next 3 days to figure out that this is an exciting business proposition? I'm in. Not much.
Exactly.
And that's the key.
Yeah,
that's the key. That video is, and so I coach a lot on videos I have kind of a talent for explaining how the video needs to be done. I tell them it's a Super Bowl commercial. I say, when you make it, and you're going to spend $5 million on 60 seconds for the Super Bowl Sunday commercial, how much time are you going to spend making it and making it right? A ton, aren't you? This is a big company. These aren't small companies. If you make yourself a Super Bowl commercial when you do this offering, make it simple, short, and sweet. And if you spend any money at all outside of the marketing budget for digital marketing, you spend it on literally, it can't be probably one of the Madison Avenue ones, but find a good videographer that can help you do it and edit it and make it just super cool.
And make it memorable. So when the Super Bowl is over, you're still thinking about the commercial that you were so impressed with.
See what Super Bowl commercials do? When the Super Bowl sucks like it did last year, everybody loves the commercials because it makes it worth $10 hours.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly. Like,
I don't know
which
about you,
the best commercial?
but I drink a lot of beer after watching beer commercials, so
I
think it works.
Great. And
I guess it works on you, huh, Ron?
You make it exciting. And
but
there was one of the videos. I have a sample sheet too. If you get any feedback on the show from founders that want us, I have a sample of the good, better, and best videos from regulation crowdfunding that I've over the last 3 years have compiled. The ones that are really good, the ones that are mediocre, and the ones that just are terrible. And I have a kind of a sample sheet of that to show you. But the one that's the best is 36 seconds, and it's for a business that had a flyover drone service. You can hire a drone service of like you're a realtor selling a property. And it was so cool and so jazzy the way they did that video. I just knew that Visa cards were popping out of wallets the whole time.
There you go, the secret.
Hey, David, I have just a couple of really quick questions before we close this out, this podcast here. One is, you say you deal with a lot of Reg A people, Reg CF, Reg A, et cetera. Do any of these guys, looking at their investor relations programs, are one of their goals to take their company to a exchange and get listed to access capital markets better? Did you see that with an investor relations program?
The Reg A Plus is designed to allow an issuer to go public at the end of 12 months if they meet certain requirements for the size of the issuance, the stock price share, how many investors they have in the offering. There's a list of that requirements, but they have an option to go public, NYSE or NASDAQ or over the counter at the end of 12 months, and you can do it without the expense of traditional syndicate broker-dealer distribution, which means brokers sell it to their clients for high commissions. And this is part of the Jobs Act, too, to make it easier for these kind of businesses that are B2C with great customer followings online through social media to actually go public without using the expensive traditional Wall Street method of doing so.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of it, because you also, you're looking at an avenue to liquidity on something like that as well, and I think that's one of the biggest strong points of Reg A. I love that aspect.
See, one of the greatest things you can do if you're doing this for your early investors, and if you're doing a Reg A Plus, and you have investors, especially bigger ones, accredited investors can invest right alongside. They're not excluded. They want to see an exit looming down the road, right? With Reg A Plus, it's just like a door that you can open. So early investors love to invest in exciting businesses that have a door they can see for an exit, and that's possible with Reg A Plus.
Well, that's kind of a no-brainer.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
again,
stay private forever. There's companies that never go public, and that's fine too. But the exits are a little harder. It's harder to. There are, exchanges, ATSs being formed to where Reg A Plus private securities before they go public can be traded, and it's just starting to take root in the Reg A Plus crowdfunding industry. That broker dealers are creating an ATS trade platform, alternative trade platform, to allow private securities to find a new home prior to those businesses going public.
You know, and
Yeah,
it's probably
exactly.
it's probably a great thing that blockchain came along too, so that it makes this whole concept a little easier to deal with.
Yes, and that's maybe another a call for us to do is talk about how blockchain and eventually whatever ends up being a regulated, officially approved cryptocurrency that is U.S. dollar denominated. We're not there yet. The SEC is struggling with all this stuff about cryptocurrency because their job is really simple. It's to keep regular investors, everyday investors, not accredited investors, from getting ripped off and misled by investment
Exactly.
people. And this is not a bad cause. It's a good cause. So all this stuff is not going to be allowed or regulated until they get a handle on it, how that's going to work to where it's not dirty money being laundered into public markets. They're not going to let it happen until there's some strategies to make it. Now, blockchain is different. That's the ledger, and that will speed up trades and settlement and secondary trading immensely. And it's a totally different kind of a subject. The cryptocurrencies run on blockchain, but blockchain is the main innovation. It's the main good, cool thing coming out of this whole technical advancement in how things.
Well, it's like you said, we could do a whole podcast on that for sure, because blockchain, there's a lot to talk about for sure on that. But one of the things I really want to bring out in this podcast, I think we did this really well, is in Reg A, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of industry professionals that you have to be, you have to align yourself with, and they're not easy to find, but you have to have them out there, from marketing to investor relations to just about everything, So
yes.
I think it's really important that we get the word out on some of these guys, and you're perfect for this because you have a great background, you have the experience in it, and Reg A is still relatively new. So
yes.
So David, how do people get a hold of you to get more information, and maybe maybe you can help them out on some of their projects?
Absolutely. The name of my business is Crowd Vision Advisors LLC, being the crowd vision, seeing how to do it. What I do for founders and their teams is provide a roadmap, GPS I call it, for capital funding online. And I help them to make the right choices and also introduce them to other service providers such as digital marketing groups to make them, put a budget together and help them see the process of moving forward into this new way of raising capital. My email is david.blankman, BLANKMAN, @crowdvision.fund, FUND.
Okay.
Love to talk with anyone
Vicky,
that has a question.
Don't you think the whole Reg A industry needs a directory of service providers that can do everything that you need to do from start to finish? Wouldn't that be a good thing?
I think it would be good.
I absolutely agree.
Yes.
I absolutely agree, Ron. And you know what? I think we should kind of develop that concept.
Yeah.
We'll have to work on that. So maybe David could help us out with that too.
I'll be glad to be helpful to you on that. Yeah.
Yeah,
excellent. So I'm glad to talk with you.
That sounds really good.
The introductory call and no obligations. Just tell them, where my experience is hands-on. I don't talk from reading a book. I talk from actually doing live offerings. And that's probably my best qualification. Is actually done these live offerings, not just read about them and then tell people I know how to do it. That's the deal.
Yeah, so you don't just put expert on the business card, right?
No, it's called where the rubber hits the road.
All right. Well, listen, David, thank you so much for being a guest on today's show. I really appreciate it, and it was some really good information. I hope some people took away some really big ideas about this, because it's really important. It's a whole investor relations thing. You got to know about this, and the marketing, et cetera. Really, I hope we hit a nerve with some people, especially some of these CEOs that drive you up the wall. Yeah. And Vicky, thanks a lot for co-hosting this podcast with me. And folks, you're listening to the Mappable USA podcast. at MappableUSA.com. If you go to that website, you scroll down, you'll see all our syndication sources. Just pick the one you like best, subscribe, and you'll never miss another episode. If you want to be a guest on the show like David was today, you can click on the guest tab, fill out the form. We'll see what we can do about getting you on the show. And lastly, if you like what you heard, send us an email at info@MappableUSA.com, or just leave a comment on whatever page you're listening to this on right now. So thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. We'll be at you next time with another Mappable USA podcast. Have a great week, everyone.